Hello there, I'm Ali Wallace, founder of DNA Recruit. Welcome to the latest episode of the DNA Download. So, being a leader of the agency world is hard. When you get it right, though, there's no better environment to thrive in. But it takes resilience, a deep understanding of how you continuously adapt and react. That's why we created this podcast, to help agency leaders share their experiences and advice and tips with others so you can accelerate your agency's growth. So I'm extremely excited to be joined today by Rod Taylor, Managing Director of Mercieca, an award-winning agency that likes to keep things simple. No overcomplicated processes, just clear strategic thinking. Mercieca have partnered with some of the UK's leading FMCG, sports and lifestyle brands. But first of all, Rod, welcome and thank you for joining me today. Just a little bit about our background before you introduce yourself. I'm proud to say Rod was our very first founding client. We actually made our very first placement with Mercieca. So there's a little bit of a soft spot in my heart for your business.
Nice to see you, Ali. Thanks for that. Lovely intro. Really appreciate it. I remember those days very well, actually. 13 odd years ago. And I think we paid you on time as well, didn't we? You
did indeed. And I actually remember that I actually remember making the placement, and I was actually, you phoned me up with the offer, and I was actually in Antigua, which was a great way to start a business.
Tough business, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, tough business. Well, listen, let's get stuck into this. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover your past to start off with. So first of all, how did you get your first break in the agency world?
Well, Ali, it's quite a long time ago, right? So in the late 80s, I think it was about 87, when I first moved to London. I had a role in it's kind of sales and marketing role it's a bit random actually. It was a boat building company that had an office in London. In Clerkenwell on Old Street. And
what sort of boats do they make?
They're making power boats.
Oh, cool.
So it's quite a long story, right? But it's connected to Lotus Cars, and Colin Chapman, who owns Lotus, was into boats. And I met somebody who, after Chapman died, was going to set up a powerboat company, because I came from the South Coast. I knew a little bit about boats. So anyway, that was my way of getting from Southampton to London, aged 19/20. And it was fun, it was good, but in the same building, this is kind of how the break happened really, in the same building that this company was, there was an ad agency called Monitor. Yeah. And for a short period of time, I was a client of theirs. We did a little ad campaign, and I made friends with some of the people in the agency, including Paul Mercieca, who ended up being my business partner in Mercieca. He offered me a client
with a powerboat company. Did Paul ever have a powerboat?
He didn't have a powerboat. No. He was more into motorbikes. But I worked with him in new business for a while. So Paul's always been the new business guy in our agency, and he had been a couple of agencies before that. And I worked with him in new business for a little while. I found it quite tough, actually. I mean, everybody knows how tough that's the sharp end, as we call it. But as we won a couple of pieces of business, I became an account manager and ended up working on the two main clients of the agency, which were Canon Cameras and Lotus Cars at the time. Nice. That was Monitor. I think I was there for about 5 years before they got bought by an agency called BHP, were part of Shandwick.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a very happy place. Paul and I went there, and within 6 months, we both decided it was time to move on. And Paul was the brave one, to be fair. He said, "Let's go and do our own thing, Rod." I was 27. Yeah. I thought that's really exciting, but at the same time, I'm thinking, do I really want to give up a fairly solid job at that age? But he convinced me to do it. It was a great decision in the end.
Silver-tongued Paul, managed to because he was driving new business then, was he?
Yeah, well, he'd been new business director of Monitor and BHP and another agency before that. So when we started the agency, there was one other guy actually, really really important part of the mix as well, that Paul worked with before, our still creative director, or ECD as you call him now, Clive Norris. Paul and him had worked at an agency before Paul joined Monitor. So we approached Clive as well. So we had the perfect kind of lineup, really, the three of us. We had the new business guy, the suit, as we always used to call the clients, account managers. That was me, and then we had Clive the creative. So we had the three of us ready to go and start something new.
Okay, so tell me about your 26-year journey at Mercieca, because that is it's a long time, isn't it? But actually, it's you look at any agencies out there, a lot of them aren't 26 years old. Quite a few of them don't make past 5. So,
well, I'll try and make the story as short as I can. But there's quite a lot that's happened in that time.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we're fairly, you could say it's fortunate, right? But I guess you make your own luck in this business and in life generally, don't you? Right? But we're quite lucky to still be here, actually, given what we've been through over the years. So 26 years, and I'll take you through it as quickly as I can, really. But so the three of us started in '95. We had a another kind of sleeping partner who owned a design agency. And he offered us a room. It was like a room in their building in exchange for us giving them all our design and artwork, right? So that was the deal.
Did it have a window?
It had a window. Actually, it was quite nice. It was a little room. There was probably room for 5 or 6 of us up there. A little balcony.
Yeah.
It was in a little muse called Cato Street, in not far from Marble Arch. So not a bad place to start. And we had a handful of clients at that point, a couple of bits of business that we kind of took with us, and then quite a few promises that didn't quite happen. But we're very much a creative shop to start with. And we just went looking for new business, and FMCG was one of the areas we said, well, let's go after FMCG. It's always going to be a good area for agencies. But of course, lots of agencies want to work in FMCG as well. You've got some great brands in that area. So we had to find a niche. We had to find something different to what other agencies were doing. And we found that there weren't really agencies doing good creative work in the whole trade B2B area in that. So even though that wasn't our background, we just said, okay, let's go after that. Let's try and learn this quickly. Yeah. And it should be a great way into these amazing companies. So within the first few years, we won Coca-Cola, we won Procter & Gamble, SmithKline Beecham, which is now GSK, and Anheuser-Busch. Those amazing brands within the first few years of starting the agency. And we made a name for ourselves doing really good trade comms work, applying all the sort of standards you'd expect from normal consumer-facing work. We applied that to trade, and it worked really well. And so it was creative to start with, some sales promotion type work as well. Then we were buying trade media for these companies. Then we got into a bit of shopper work as well. We also launched Beko, which is a big, the biggest domestic appliance brand in the UK now. That's just through some old connections that Paul had actually with Beko. And then a few years later, we started a PR business as well. I think it was about 6 or 7 years later. We had a lady came to join us called Selena Taylor, which is no relation to me. She's now head of comms at Coca-Cola, actually. But she helped us get PR off the ground. And we won, and again, this is focused on trade. We won Cadbury's PR business in that area. We won Diageo. And we then picked up Coke's PR as well as all the creative and media buying that we do. So, we were within, I guess that was 7 years. We were rocking and rolling, really. We were going really well for a small startup, completely independent business.
So the niche piece served you well, and it's actually something that carries on serving businesses well even today, right?
Yeah, definitely does. For us, it's still a core, absolutely core to what we do.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of other things as well, as you know. We had got into sport and lifestyle. So we've done some work for Fred Perry.
Yeah.
During that time, and Aquascutum used to be a client of ours pre-Mercieca. So we had some knowledge around sport and apparel and lifestyle, sort of fashion sort of stuff. And another PR lady joined us, Gemma Oakes, who's still with us now.
Yeah.
She's been with us 19 years. She had quite already at that point a fair bit of experience and most definitely lots of passion for sport. And she helped us win Puma's PR business, the consumer PR business of Puma, quite early on after she joined, and then helped us with some FMCG clients bringing in kind of sport to help them support their health credentials. And that opened up another area of work for us quite quickly. So those two sectors are what we still focus on today. We're very much focused on the sectors rather than disciplines in particular.
And you become famous in it, right?
Yeah, we have. We've created a great name for ourselves, really. The next stage of the journey was when we moved to Camden.
Yeah.
Which was a few years later, 2004. We had our own studio by then, so we parted company with the other guy that we'd partnered with early on, and the PR business was growing really well at that point, as well as the creative side of it. We're having a lot of fun, doing some really good work, and we kept most of the original clients actually, and picked up a couple more. We had Heinz, and we were doing work for the National Lottery by then, winning some awards, and as you say, getting a reputation for what we were doing in those sectors. But the next part of the story is the kind of one of the first bumps in the road, I guess, 2008, right? Yeah. Everyone will remember.
Bumper road for everybody.
What happened in the city at that point? It hit us really hard, actually. I mean, this was one of the hard parts of being an independent, right? So, we didn't have any other investors in the business. It was just us. So we had nobody backing us, and it hit us really hard, actually. So
this is when we met.
This is when we met, exactly. Yeah. It was round about this time, and I think I remember telling you what was going on over dinner. A friend of ours, mutual friend, and, it's what kind of triggered my new role, if you like, because we had to act quickly. We had to invest more of our own money into the business, and the big thing was we had to get really sharp. We had to start running the business differently, from what we had before. So quite a bit of soul searching at that point about how much did we really believe in the business, and I guess I had the sort of backing of my two original partners, Clive and Paul. And then at that point, we had Gemma on the board, and there was a couple of other people on the board as well who, they had real faith in me. Somebody had to step up and take the reins at that point.
So is that how you went from sort of a traditional client services role into
MD,
a full-blown MD role?
Yeah, with no qualifications or experience of running that side of the business. So the operational side, the finance side, I hadn't had any experience or any qualifications, but I guess I knew a lot about our business by that time. Right? I probably knew it better than anybody, and I've got a bit of a brain for finance and operational stuff as well. So it was as I say, a leap of faith, but I knew I needed some help at that point, especially in those two areas. And so I brought in a new FD at that point and an ops director, and we just got tough for a period of time because there was no other option really, but just to make some.
That was
really
I remember her very well. She's very tough.
Swing the arm from being we were a lot of fun, but we were quite soft in the way that we ran the business. So we went really hard. We went the other way.
Yeah,
we got really tough. We brought in some control and some processes that you would expect to see a much bigger agency. So and that served us really well. So we got tough for a while, really got on top of it, and actually had quite a rapid turnaround. And we were profitable within 12 months. Again, of me taking the role, and obviously that wasn't just down to me; it was about commitment of everybody else to wanting to make it happen. And then within 2 or 3 years, about 3 or 4 years from there, we'd grown to about 45 people. And we doubled the business actually in that period of time, and we were making good profit by that point. And we wanted to keep growing, so we took on more office space to allow for expansion in Camden, and it was all looking really good at that point. And now here's the but, right? the next bump in the road, it was something that we actually had no control over whatsoever. We had a fire. I had a phone call one Saturday evening in the March of the following year, 2013, a phone call from the alarm company saying you need to come to your office. There's a major fire. And then within minutes, I had Paul and Clive both phoning me, and then FD. So this isn't looking good. The FD who lived near the office was stood outside the office with 3 or 4 fire engines outside. I mean, it was horrendous. Look, I won't bore everybody with the whole.
I remember it. I remember it incredibly well, because it was as you did back in those days, talking about getting on the train every day.
Yeah,
we'd generally see each other on a daily basis, and it was tough to take, wasn't it?
You would have seen my ashen face.
I did. I remember it. I remember it to this day.
For several weeks, trying to sort all that out was extremely difficult. But I mean, it was a proper full-on fire that meant we had to move out of the office completely. It wasn't just a little fire, and it was, the whole place was wrecked. We had to move into a temporary space, and it took 12 months to sort it all out.
And insurance and all of that sort of gubbins.
Long argument, lots of arguments. Insurers don't like paying out big sums of money, and
you had to keep the business going.
We had to try and keep it going. Right? And actually, what happened is that the fire was in the main office, and then the additional space that we'd taken, which was to expand the studio, for a little while became our home. But trying to put 40 odd people in a space that's designed for 15 was not ideal. We got another temporary space together fairly quickly, but honestly, it was a really, really tough time. It knocked us sideways, and all sorts of things happened. You had some of the team jumping ship. Us realizing quite quickly that we're going to need to cut the team back. I mean, it really tested our client relationship.
What year was that? Do you remind me what year that was?
That was 2013.
2013. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, things weren't. The world was relatively well tuned at that time.
Yeah.
But to be able to pull yourself out of that hole, I don't think anybody would ever know what it takes out of you, and what you have to do to get yourself out of that.
It was the hardest period of my career, Ali, and it hit me hard, but not just me, actually. All the partners on the board. It hit everybody really, really hard, because it was not just the business impact, but the emotional impact of it as well was really, really tough. After we built something, we'd already had one pretty big bump in the road and sorted that out, and we're going so well, and then suddenly the rug's pulled from under your feet. It's a really, really tough time. But
showed your leadership skills, right?
Well, you do, until you're put under a situation like that, you don't know what you've got. You don't actually know how tough and resilient you actually are. To be able to deal with these sorts of things. But we did. We got through it. But it's really difficult, because we had some long-standing clients from that point, and on the whole, they all stuck with us, right? So. Thankfully, that's what kept us going. But we also won some. We had some newer clients. They wobbled, right, as you would expect. And of course, when you're operating like that, you can't win new business. Right? Because the first impression from us was not good. I had a big pitch on with a big beer company. At that time, we had to pull out halfway through. Never pulled out of a pitch in my life, but we had to, because I knew we weren't going to win it. We couldn't deliver on it. And
well, good job you did though. It's better to pull out.
I think it is.
It's harder to pull out, but it's better to do that.
It's about being honest about a situation, and that's always been a big thing for us. Honesty, and don't say you can do something and then let people down, because it's the worst thing you can do. We cut right back. We cut right back to 20 people. So less than half the size that we were, just to get through that period of time. And when we were back in the office, as I say, it was a year later before it was all sorted out with insurance and the office had been refurbished. We were back in there, and then it took us a little while to get the mojo back, if we're being honest about it. As I say, it's quite hard, but we rebuilt slowly from that point.
But you kept the core though, didn't you? There was a good core.
Yeah, there's a good core team, right? So all the senior team, and then a number of people that have been with us a while, and it was a real test of everybody's character, actually. But we were back on our feet in a reasonable period of time. We had a little bit of help. We had a good non-exec that came in to chair our board meetings for a while, and he was quite tough on us, actually. He was basically saying, "Look, right, guys, you can't change what happens. It happens. And get focused, and you'll be all right. You had a great business before. There's no reason why you shouldn't again. That helped. I had a mentor. I know Gemma and one of the other guys on the board had a mentor as well individually. That helped us all. That's something I definitely recommend to people. Listening to this. And then we built a better team. Gave us a time to really think about the business, actually, where we wanted it to be in the future, and what the team needed to look like. So we used that time well, and then by 2016 we were in much better shape. We knew what we were. We knew why clients liked working with us. And we started to get our love back for the business, right? And that was really important. Get the love back. That inspired us, and it inspired the team as well. And I guess that was the next sort of phase for us, really, because during that time, we realised, we're not just an FMCG trade business by then. We've done lots of different things, and we went out with a new proposition to market. Because we were very much an integrated business by that time. And we knew, and
very integrated, more integrated than most, right?
Yeah, because we have PR. Normally PR sits out on its own, doesn't it? Right? Even today, quite often you don't see PR as a part of the integrated mix within agencies.
No.
So we went out, and because of the way that we've always liked to work, you summed it up at the beginning. We like to keep things simple. We went out with a proposition, integrated, not complicated. That was kind of our mantra, if you like. That's how we did business.
Nice.
We integrated, and we did it in a non-complicated way, and that really helped us win some more business. It helped clients better understand what our full capabilities were. And it also helped the team a lot, right? So it helped the current team understand what we were, how we were always going to continue to do business in this uncomplicated way. And it also made it a little bit better for us when we recruited as well. You'll remember this because you helped us with a bit of this. Being able to say to people, this is the type of people that do well in our business. If you come with that, if you can fit into our culture. If you're the right personality, so it's not just about your experience, about who you are and how you work, then you'll do well with us. And so that worked well. Also, we won Drum's Integrated Agency of the Year shortly after relaunching that as well. So a really good period of time, actually, bouncing back from a really tough
time.
And we've just kept building on that.
Because there is a fact, isn't there, that you've been. I think you've won in your niche, the B2B trade marketing agency of the year. Something it was like 20. How many years was it on the belt?
Well, it was 15 years.
15.
Actually, 15. On the trot. 15 years on the trot. It was the grocer Yeah, so William Reed, they ran some awards for that sector every year, which were made up of lots of different awards. But the award that we won each year was it was Trade Media Agency of the Year, 15 years on the trot. So
nobody does that.
No,
That's
no.
and it's funny because you sort of you move on and then you it's something that goes into the history banks. But I think it's something that you should always tell people because you should be proud of that. So you've definitely been on a real roller coaster ride. I've been there and I've sort of lived it with you. But tell me more about your FMCG and sport sort of area. Why you focused on these two sectors, and when there are so many others that you could be working in.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question, Ali, because not all agencies do focus on certain sectors, but we've worked in some other sectors as well. I mentioned Beko before. But for us, it's being focused on those sectors gets us really intimate with clients' business, right? Because we live and breathe. Because we've been working in FMCG, as I said, for 26 years, sport for nearly 20 years, right? That gives us real inside knowledge on those areas of business, right? So when we it enables us almost to have a shorthand with clients, right? It means we understand the challenges that they're facing much better, and it helps us get to it helps us understand their challenges, and it helps us get to solutions much quicker, right? Because, as I say, because we're intimate with those areas of business, and I think clients want specialism in agency. But for us, it's the sectors that is the specialism, not the discipline. And that's I think is the difference.
Okay.
And why those specifically?
Yeah. Why those specifically?
Sorry, that's what you were asking. They're just great areas, right? They really excite us, right? They're FMCG by pure nature and the name. It's so fast moving. It keeps you on your toes. It really does. It's really fast paced, and sport is as well. And it's and
who
sport
doesn't like working in sport?
Who doesn't like working in sport, right? So they're two great areas, but also they're really stable as well, and that's really important for agencies, right? So FMCG, everybody's always going to be buying food and drink and stuff for their homes and what have you, right? No matter what, and I've seen that obviously through
COVID. Christ,
through COVID. I saw that through the recession, about in 2008, and before that as well. We remember late 80s, early 90s was another with recession, right? So an area that will always do okay no matter what's going on in the world, and also I think with sport, actually, COVID has sort of proven that actually that while everything else was taken away from us, sport, whether that was watching sport or just going for a run or whatever, it's part of everybody's life day to day, right? And really important part of everybody's life. So they're stable, and also, Ali, the people that work in these areas, client side, they're really passionate about what they do, and I mean, it's infectious. Their passion becomes really infectious, and I find both those areas really exciting and inspiring, actually, and I know the rest of our team do as well.
Yeah, no, I bet. So tell me about where you are now and what challenges you face on a daily basis as MD of Mercieca. Because more than most, I believe, out of anybody I've ever spoken to, you've faced probably greater challenges with what you've talked about than anyone.
Yeah, no, I think the history-wise, yes, right, but today, I think because what we've gone through is it's enabled us to run our business in a better way, right? So having to look at yourself in the mirror properly and say, right, okay, what do we need to do here to make this business run better? And understanding what the team want as well.
Yeah,
and that's one of the biggest things I've learned over the years. That keeping the team happy and inspired is probably the most important thing, because that's, at the end of the day, that's our product, isn't it? Right? We don't have anything else. People are our product. But we continue to evolve. I think last year You can't call that a bump in the road for us. It's the same for everybody. It's been extremely tough, but also it's made me realise how strong we are. Our relationships and just how great the team are. Everybody adapted so well. So working from home, I never thought that would be possible.
I remember you saying we were sitting out on the park opposite your house, and you were like, talk to me about it. Work from home. What? Because obviously we've been doing it for 3 years.
Yeah, no, exactly. You've worked out how to do that, and I never have. And some of the team would occasionally spend some time at home, but I guess we were just creatures of habit, just getting on a train and going into work every day. But this has proven that you don't have to work in that way. All the team adapted really well. I think communication was key. I think that's even in normal times, communication is everything, right? Between you, your board, your team, right? Absolutely crucial that everybody communicates regularly, well, is really clear about everything. So that's always been a challenge, but we've got a lot better at it.
But you were quite. Just one thing quickly I wanted to mention is that obviously with what had happened to you in the past, moving forward, sort of sometimes Lady Luck does come and help out, and obviously the whole office piece that was a bonus for you, wasn't it?
I think we were due a bit of luck, Ali.
The
other things, but we, as you know, we were early last year, January last year, we were negotiating with the landlord over the next few years in that office, and there are a few things we weren't entirely happy with, including them getting quite punchy, thinking that Camden should be classified a bit more like King's Cross, but so we got to a point where the lease actually expired, and we were in what's called a Section 24 notice period, and we were going to use that period of time up till July to try and find a compromise between us and the landlord. But what it meant was we weren't tied to that office beyond July, so that actually helped us enormously. That and like everybody, we used furlough for a couple of teams. That was really helpful. But other than the first 2 or 3 months, where I think it was just nobody really knew what was going to happen, did they, in the world? That was a scary time for all of us. I found it particularly stressful because it was out of our control. It's one of those. Other things that I've experienced in the past. You can make your decisions and get control of the situation, and then if you've made the right decisions, then things work for you. But obviously, with the pandemic, no one had any control over that.
You can only do what's in your control.
Yeah, and I did. Again, this is where a good bit of advice from somebody said to me, "Rod, don't stress about things you can't control," and that made me sort of get my head around it, really. I'd say we're one of the lucky ones. By the late summer, our business was in pretty good shape again. Mostly, as I said, because of the sectors that we work in.
Yeah,
that helped us really well. For me personally, my challenges, main one is for me that I always want to see how the business is performing.
Yeah,
that for me as MD is really important, right? So we've got quite a few processes that we use that creates a dashboard for me, really. So this all comes from how we restructured things many years ago. So a good view of forecasts, a good view of what's in the pipeline, where regular senior management meetings on an operational level and board level, and not all MDs would do this, but I'm close to all those things, and that gives me really good reassurance on what we're doing well, and also identifies what we're not doing very well, and that helps me focus my time.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess my role's not the same as anyone else's in the agencies. I often say, I kind of do everything and nothing.
Yeah. But you're still very close to clients, though, aren't you? That's something you've always had.
Some I am, Ali. Yeah. Some I am, and this is one of the kind of ongoing challenges for me actually. It's because because I was client service, which meant I was close to every client every day, and I knew exactly what was going on. And that's what's a little bit harder for me these days, because I spend quite a lot of my time running the business, not in the business in that way, right? So, but I've got a amazing board. The board that we have in place now, with as I mentioned before, Gemma's been with us 19 years. The original founders, Paul and Clive, are still working in the business every day as well. We've got another creative director, Pete's been with us 10 years now. And the FD that we have now also worked with me back in 2008, 2009. And these are people that I really trust.
And got familiar. You're very familiar with them.
I'm really familiar with them. I trust them. They really care about the business. And I've got great relationships with all of them. So that helps me. That helps me do my job.
So in that, what does success look like in your role?
First indicator. Well, the thing is, Ali, I don't think about myself so much, right? I think about the business.
Yeah.
Right. I guess it's because I've been with the agency for so long. I'm obviously a major shareholder in the business. So when I think about my success, I'm thinking more about the agency, really. So the P&L, it's obvious, right? But the P&L, if it's in good shape, then I know I'm doing my job well.
Yeah.
Right. So we have, as I say, good visibility of how we're doing all the time. That's the reality of business at the end of the day, isn't it? Right. It's what the accountants would say. It's the sanity, not the vanity. Right. So if the P&L is in a good place, then that's the first indicator, and I'm very happy about that. The next one for me is, I guess, to sum it up by how happy the other directors are. Right. So and that usually equates to how happy their teams are. They're all, the board are all very strong characters, so it doesn't take much for me to know when they're not happy.
Well, that's a business, isn't it?
Yeah. So that they're very vocal about that. But I guess my job is to make sure we've got harmony across the board. That's a key thing for me. It's what I'm always trying to do, is make sure we're all working well. And as I said before, I've got great relationships with them all because they've all been in the business so long. So we talk a lot, which is a big part of it.
They're life friends, aren't they? In the end of the day,
well, absolutely they are. I mean, and that's not always easy. Being friends with people that you work with, it's a test of your relationship for sure. Business, isn't it? But it's look, relationships are really important. And this is the other one for me, really, the indicator of if I'm doing my job well or the business is going well, is the strength and length of our client relationships. Right. So I mentioned a few there.
Pretty amazing.
In the past. And I think our average client relationship is about 8 or 9 years now. We've got Becco and Coke. We still work with those guys, after 20 odd years. That's extremely good. Campina Friesland, who make your zoo, that's over 10 years. It might even be more than that. I can't remember now. It's a long relationship. And then even the more recent ones that we've worked with, Weetabix, PVM, General Mills, Philip Morris, the Pentland Group. We've been doing work in sport, and Mitre and Canterbury. Those guys, they're all at 5 years or more. I think that's a really good sign of a successful agency.
Like you said, go back to people and then your clients. If they're both in good shape, then you can concentrate your time on other areas, which is exactly what you need to be as an MD. So moving on to that comes in nicely. What do you most love about being MD? Because lots of people don't.
Well, I've had my moments. He says nervously. Yeah, but well, the obvious one is, I still love our industry and the craft, right? So I love us doing great work. That makes me really proud. And if you win an award for the work, then that's a bonus in my book. It's not what you set out necessarily to do, but it's always nice, right? And if anyone says says they're not bothered about awards is lying, right? But or they just don't care about what they're doing enough. But the main one for me is again, it goes back to team, right? What makes me what I'm really proud of is when, or what I really like seeing is our team develop, right? So when people stay with us for a long time, I love seeing their careers progress, and then you can see what happens in their lives as well on a personal level. And their careers progress, and they're going through the different levels, and that impacts positively on their lives as well. That I love that.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that. Yeah,
that's good. That's great. So the future, pretty important, given that we are all not spring chickens anymore. So where are you heading, and what's next for Mercieca?
Okay. So we've got some exciting stuff coming up in this year. As we said before, we obviously we've all been working from home, but we've been working with home without an office to go back to. Right, so that's a great opportunity for us. We're looking at some new office space at the moment. I think we won't be back in Camden. We'll be more central.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
That's going to have massive benefits to you though, because you've had that thrust upon you, and the learning process of you can't just flip back to the office. There must be some benefits in that.
Most definitely. I think it's really exciting. The team cannot wait to get back together. I think for some of us like me, we're going to try and find what's the happy balance between being working from home and working in an office. And I think, but obviously for some of the team, especially the younger team, they want to be back in the office all the time, and that's great. So that is a great opportunity, as you say. It's a great opportunity. It'll help us find some slightly different ways of working. And I've been using the expression trying to find the best of both. Yeah. Right. So if we can do that, then we'll have cracked it. I think. But it's a great opportunity for everybody, not just us, everybody, to find a slightly different way of working, get the balance right. Especially if you've got families and
the balance right. The balance right for people in their different ways of life. You've been going for 26 years, and so more than anybody that having people going through their iterations of their life. You can't just go right. Everybody has to be in the office 5 days a week versus nobody has the office at all. You've seen both, so you can cherry pick that and make it work for Mercieca and your clients and your staff.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's got to work for business, hasn't it? It's not just about what's right for me personally or anybody else personally. It's about what's the right balance for us to get the best out of everybody. And as you say, what's right for clients. But I mean, that's the obvious one, really, about what's next. We've got to keep delivering great work for our clients.
Yeah,
it sounds extremely obvious, but I tell you, it's very easy to get distracted, especially at a senior management level. But that's always our priorities. Number one, we talk about a lot as a board. No matter what else we think we want to do, we've got to keep delivering great work every day for our clients, because that's what you're judged on. Ultimately, while we're doing that, we look to see how we can improve our services and skills that we have around the team. And I think that's a quite interesting one at the moment, because I think the industry is changing a little bit because of I guess the blurring of the lines between all the disciplines, and how digital in particular connects everything, right? So that's enabled us to think differently about the skill sets in our business in particular. What else? Rebooting things that we haven't been able to do over the last 14 months. So experiential, anything, live media events that we manage. Quite a bit of work in hospitality we're doing before. Obviously, we've not been doing any of that in the last 14 months. It'd be great to see those things coming back on board. Some are already, which is great to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll be doing new business, a bit of a push. We're keen to create some more client relationships. Especially, we have been actually in FMCG over the last few months. Paul still does this. He networks extremely well in that area. We've started a couple of new relationships in FMCG, but sport in particular. That's going to be a big push for us.
Driving sport and lifestyle. Yeah.
I think within the next couple of months we'll be ready to get that going. We've been doing some great work in that area, as I mentioned, especially for Pentland, and we're keen to get some more.
Yeah. And what about, I think the key thing for me knowing you, me knowing the business for 13 plus years, what about your culture? I know it's massively important to you. It's not, we've got to know each other, we got to know each other outside of work. We got to know each other through work. We've been on skiing trips, we've done this, that, and the other. We've had a lot of fun, and our relationship is based around the culture of us just getting on well and being interested in the same things. But give me an idea about that, because I know it's massive for you.
It's really important, Ali. As I've been sort of telling that sort of story of our history, you can see how important the culture has been for us. It's what's kept us under some difficult circumstances. Core elements of the team really, really tight. Right, our culture. And a lot of that just comes from the things I was saying before. Just being really down to earth and hardworking, being really tenacious. Being very open and honest. These are what I would call more old-fashioned values, right? But they're absolutely key to how we run our business. They really are, and I define those things as culture.
Yeah.
And it's nearly everybody. I wouldn't say absolutely everybody that's worked for us, but most people say they really enjoy working with us. So enjoyment is obviously a really important aspect. You've got to enjoy what you do. If you don't love what you're doing, then you can't
go and do something else.
Go and do something else. Go somewhere else. But everybody knows our industry is tough. It's hard, right? And so you've got to work hard at it, and you've got to be really fairly thick-skinned as well, right? So being open and being honest. Right? You've got to being open and honest, right? Some people don't like openness and honesty because sometimes it hurts, but actually, it's much more beneficial as long as obviously, things are communicated in the right way for to people. And it's a two-way thing. We want honesty coming back to us as a management team. We want people to tell us what they think about how we're running our business and what we could be doing better to improve it, and that's really healthy. I think that's two-sided.
You need to see that both sides quite often. That's an important part of whether you're working with a client, whether whether I'm working with you guys, and I can see things and feedback to you, because it's really important, and not be sitting there going, oh, they don't want to hear this. It's like, if you believe it,
no, we don't want to hear it. That's the thing, and that's why, again, it goes back to relationships, doesn't it? Well, the better you know people, often it's easier for people to tell you those things, right? But we try and encourage that discussion as early as possible in a relationship, because it's healthy. It really is, and it helps you develop. It's really cool. Look, the other thing about our culture is. When I think back to the beginning, when I first got into advertising, what attracted me to London and the industry, was about how inclusive, how diverse London is, right, and how inclusive I found agency life at the beginning, because I came from something completely different. It's a whole new world for me. A culture. I always think of London as a cultural melting pot. Right? But we're working on this as an agency now. I know we're not the only agency. We've had a good mixture of people working for the business in the past, but I'd like to see it more diverse. I think that should be good for business, right? I want us to be able to attract a more diverse range of people, so from different backgrounds. That can only be good for creativity, I think. And I think the industry as a whole needs to work harder at it as well. And it's a complicated area. You and I have spoken about it.
It's really
complicated times. But we need people like you, Ali, to help us really. And I don't know what all the answers are at this stage, but it's definitely.
I don't think anybody does.
No, but it's something we're definitely going to try harder at.
Yeah. Well, the key thing with it is that for it's something that especially in an industry that might not have been pulling the right people, pulling anyone into the industry from different backgrounds. So it's not something that you can fix overnight. And I believe every business is, it's something that every business is jostling with. And it's going, and you can't click your fingers and fix it.
No, you can't. But that's a good start in my book.
Totally.
If there's the desire to change, then obviously without desire nothing happens. But if the desire is there, then it's a good step in the right direction, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So for you personally, where do you want to be in the next 5 or 10 years?
I think I will most likely still be with Mercieca. I think that's a fair bet.
Yeah.
Right? It's been pretty much my whole working life, hasn't it? Right. And I've been guilty of having too many kind of 3 and 5 year plans, and I think the last year in particular has taught us you can't plan too far ahead. I know lots of business leaders will say you've got to have that plan. It's really important. It's got to be very, very clear exactly where you're going as a business. We're quite clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to look too far ahead because I guess things can change, right? So, but for me, 5 years from now, as I say, I'll be with the business, but I most likely would have passed the MD baton. By then. I've probably done enough, and it'd be time for somebody else to take the reins from that point of view. But I won't hang up my boots, Ali, because for the reasons I've said, I love what we do, and I love our business. And as long as I'm delivering value to the business and to our clients, then I'll be in the business. When the day comes when I'm not, then I'll try and do something else. Whether that's mentoring or non-exec work or whatever. But for the time being, I think I'm still valuable, so I'll keep doing what I'm doing.
But also, everybody's our industry is renowned for everybody going right, and we talked about it many times. Right, we're going to build it and grow it and sell it, and I'm going to go and sit on my arse on a beach and drink cocktails. And actually, you spent your life 26 years in Mercieca, and you've easily got another 10 years in the tank, and actually life does get a little bit you start seeing the amount of time you spend in the industry. It does you can add a huge amount of value, right? And it gets.
Well, I hope so, Ali. But I mean, it's interesting because like anybody that's running a business, often there's a lot of discussion about exit plans, right?
Yeah.
But over the years, I've changed my view on it. I've spoken to a few people. We had with your help, there was somebody that was actually interested in buying us not that long ago. But it made me actually appreciate what we have as a business. When somebody starts to look at you and says, "Oh, this is interesting," it makes me appreciate what we have even more. And I think, well, if we were to sell the business, the issue with it is that it could massively change the culture.
Yeah,
something that we work so hard at. That I think it's, as I said before, the way that we think about our team, we really care about the team and their lives going forward. I think we're better to keep running our business ourselves and making sure we've got a great succession plan in place so that the culture lives on. And if I can help keep pushing it in that direction, then that's great.
Nice.
That's
Excellent. So, lastly, where do you see the industry going as a whole? Big question, but it'd be great to get your perspective.
It's a huge question. I'll give you my slightly biased view on it, based on how we run our business, really, right? But it's working in the business for 30 years. I've seen what we used to call integrated agencies, full service. That was the term back then. Full service agency. So you kind of did everything, and then
that's because clients wanted full service at the time.
Yeah, that's what they wanted. I mean, there was much simpler agencies back then, right? But you bought the media for them, and you made the ads for them, and then you did the other bits as well whenever they needed it. If they wanted a sales promotion campaign or a DM campaign or whatever it was, that's just how you did it, right? Mm-hmm. And then you saw over the course of sort of years. Probably 10 years on from when I started, you started seeing agencies being broken up into more discipline focused agencies, right? So you'd have the SP agency, you'd have the digital agency, you'd have the shopper agency, etc. And then PR, as we said before, has always kind of been out there on its own anyway. And then I feel like it's gone full circle again. Obviously in the last few years, integrated has become the term. I'm not sure that everybody should call themselves integrated. Yeah, because I think a lot of people it's become a
omni-channel is another heavily used.
Omni-channel is one way of looking at it, but there's probably going to be some new terminology. For integrated or omni or 360 or whatever you want to call it, because I don't think it needs to be labelled anymore. I think what we're seeing is, as I say, it's kind of gone full circle. So you've got two quite a big divide actually between bigger agencies, the groups, and then the smaller, the independents like us. I think we're all actually trying to do a similar thing, but how we do it is quite different. Yeah. So the bigger agencies, and I always think about Engine because originally made up of independent agencies with different disciplines, and then they put them all together within a group and try and make them work well together. Yeah. I know some people there, and they do make it work. And a lot of the groups are set up like that. They're almost made up of lots of smaller agencies. Yeah. Whether they've come together through choice or not is a kind of another discussion, I suppose. But our side of things, I think our smaller teams, which are I said it earlier, trying to build multi-skilled teams now. So you don't have lots of departments. You don't just purely have a PR department. The PR department are also the social guys, and they're also the media event planners, and also buy some media for their clients in those sort of areas as well.
Makes the job more interesting and more fun. Makes it more interesting. You get more out of it.
Our client service guys, they're not just account managers; they're project managers. Mm-hmm. They buy media as well. They get really involved in the actual delivery of what we do for our clients as well. And the creative teams, they're not. We don't have the classic art director, copywriter team in our agency. Our creatives are fully rounded creators. They do everything. So they do all the ideas, and they write, and they art direct. Right. Some of them can use a camera as well. Our designers, they're not just graphic designers. They're editors as well, so they do motion graphics, etc. Right, so this is what we try to build in our team is multi-skilled talent.
And I'm going to ask you an open-ended question, a quick-fire question. 3 pieces of advice to the younger generation. When you started out, what would you do now?
Okay. I would. One thing I think is that I've learned over the years in the agency world. Okay, I'll give you some advice around the agency world. This is what I tried to do early on. It's benefited me massively in my career, and that's about learning everybody else's role in the agency, not just my own. right? And if you know, if you want to, I mean, look, there's lots of benefits of doing that, right? So understand the process of how things work.
Yeah.
It's really good. Give you great empathy for the other people that work in the agency with you. Actually help you become great friends with people, because if you've got empathy for them, you'll spend more time with them, you'll chat more, you'll become friends, and you'll get a lot more out of it. But also, as you progress through your career, knowing how the agency works, every part of the agency, you can't be an MD, for instance, or you can't be on a board of an agency unless you understand it really well. And it'll benefit you in other ways as well. It'll also benefit you when you're dealing with clients. If you're on the client service side of things, you've got to know the ins and outs of how an agency works. So that would be the main bit of advice.
Yeah.
I would say, from a client service point of view, spend as much time as you can with your clients. Right? I think it's one thing that's been lost over the years with technology, right? Emails and WhatsApp groups and everything else. Face-to-face time with clients is so important. You've got to build relationships with people, get to know them, right?
Well, and COVID's flipped it on its head, hasn't it?
Well, I think this, people being able to talk over a Zoom call, it's not the same as meeting somebody face to face, but it's better than not being able to do anything at all. But you still cannot beat being in a room, or having a pint with somebody, or having dinner, or whatever. That's you'll just get to know people so much better, and relationships. We've said a lot on this podcast today, but relationships are everything. And then the last one, I was
going to quickly say, sitting on the train together. It's amazing how you get to know people sitting on, and that's that's going. How do you get that back to these youngsters, to people going into the business world? It sounds ridiculous, but they're not going to be sat on the train for 22 days a year, and they're going to, lots of people think it was boring. Obviously in our carriage there was never any boredom. We were just chatting away and having a laugh. But I do believe there's other ways that people need to do that.
I think it's a bit of it's the most natural thing there is, but it's also, I think it's quite hard for the younger generation because they're so used to doing things, on their phones, communicating that way. Actually, having a chat face to face, somebody, especially over the last year, some of the younger ones, that's a big part of their lives that they've missed out on, and it will be a bit of a challenge. But all I'd say to everybody is just go for it, right? Don't be scared of it, and just go for it and start that conversation, and you'll make friends a lot easier that way, and you'll create good relationships with clients and that sort of thing. Okay, last one, a simple one. I've learned this over the years: never overpromise. There's nothing worse than letting people down, right? So you're better to underpromise and overdeliver than overpromise. And I've over the years I've seen too many people promise the world and then not be able to deliver it, and it's the worst thing that you can do.
You end up with egg on your face.
Exactly.
Sur le visage.
So it goes back to the thing I was talking about, being honest with people. That's a key thing. Don't say you can do something if you can't, because you're better, as I say, you're better off exceeding what people are expecting of you than not. Lovely.
Well, Rod, thank you very much. This has been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to getting out on the golf course.
Thanks, Ali. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed that. It's a good chat today.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.